Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of the Articulate Fly. We're back with another Southwest Virginia fishing report with Matt Reilly. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good, Marvin. How are you?
As always, just trying to stay out of trouble. And, it's kind of interesting. I just finished talking to Ethan, and we were talking before we started recording that even though you've probably gotten roughly the same amount of rain, the impact on the rivers is a little bit different in Southwest Virginia than it is in Central Virginia.
Very possibly. Yeah, I looked at some of the James River gauges over the last couple of days, and they're really getting back down to a pretty, not that we're not, but they get down to a little bit more fishable level a little bit faster, it seems like. And then, the new hit a pretty high level over the weekend after the rain, Friday and Saturday morning. All the trout streams kind of popped up pretty good, but they're all dropping out again as well. But we got another little burst today. I think it was about a quarter of an inch, and it's at least slow in the fall, but certainly just kind of soaking the ground a little bit more. So hopefully the levels don't drop out again after this.
Yeah. And you were saying, too, that you have the benefit of having kind of the more active dam control where you fish as opposed to the rivers in Central Virginia.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to know your river. I mean, I fish everything from, down in Tennessee, we've got some, TVA dam controlled power generating dams. And then on the new in Radford, we've got the Crater Lake Dam. And then, of course, you go further north, you got the James, and some of those other rivers up there are, for the most part, just run of the river. So, if you get a pile of rain in Botetourt County, it's just going to stay, that dirty water is going to travel downstream. Whereas where we got a bunch of rain up around North Carolina and Grayson County back in the end of last week, the river came up and they jacked the flow up at Crater Dam like they normally do when we're getting a lot of rain. But they cut it back this week to a real fishable level, and the lake did not get dirty enough to really be kicking out a bunch of dirty water at the dam. So it's fairly clear down there at the moment.
Yeah. But that being said, the good news is you wanted rain because you were afraid you're going to have to musky fish in low, super clear conditions. And so you got a little bit of what you were asking for.
We did. And we had, frankly, we had pretty good musky conditions last week as well before the rain, just from some rain. I guess it was the Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago. The river bumped up a good bit, and we were fishing a pretty full river with that kind of 3, 4, maybe 5 feet of visibility, which I really like. And we're having some pretty good days. Fortunately, we've lost a lot of fish in the last week or two, but things are looking up, and rivers aren't going to be in bad shape for very long. The only thing really that'll be a hindrance, I think, in the next few days is going to be cold weather, because we're supposed to see highs around the upper 30s and maybe 40 degrees for the next couple of days.
Yeah, but the good news, right, is that's going to keep pushing those muskie as that water cools off to make them a little bit easier to pattern, right?
Yeah, we should, be able to follow them into those holes, in the next probably couple of weeks as things start to cool down. We really did have pretty warm water temperatures last week before things started getting chilly. We were up in the upper 50s and kind of touching 60 degrees. So we're still a good long ways from that kind of mid to low 40s range where we start really concentrating and hanging on structure and that kind of thing. But they certainly will, as things start to cool down, start moving away from current a little bit.
Yeah, and got an interesting question for you too. Grant wanted to get your thoughts on tips for working fly line through all of that fall surface clutter that we see this time of year.
That is a good question, and I'm not really sure I have a great answer for it. I'll say, first thing I'll say is to avoid it, and that sounds really obvious, but there's ways you can go about that. Particularly if I'm trout fishing in the fall, one thing that I try to do is fish the most water that I possibly can. A lot of our bigger trout streams around here are 20, 30, 35 miles long. And when you have that kind of seasonal low water in the fall, you can go way up high on those streams, or even kind of in the middle reaches of them. And the water's low, it's not moving very fast. And so there's not much current to really clear leaves out of your way. But the further downriver you go, you get below some tributaries and you find a little bit more volume. You'll find water that has a little bit more current, that's kind of, plowing the leaves out of the way, or at least taking them downstream, as opposed to just allowing them to sit and just kind of clutter things up for the near future. So that's one thing that I think about. Another one would be, I guess potentially, avoid fishing. I think sinking lines and streamers do a little bit better than topwater stuff in the real heavy leaf debris, just because the leaves are on the surface, and if you're fishing something topwater, you're just kind of raking. Whereas the sinking lines will kind of push down and hopefully through the leaves a little bit. I'd say other than that, I mean, it's kind of just a fact of life for a little while. Something you've got to learn to deal with. It's kind of dumb, but when we're out fishing, or when I'm out fishing and we have real heavy leaf debris, I mean, it really is kind of an accuracy game if you're moving down the river and casting flies, and you're trying to land that fly line in those lanes, or in those spots where you're not gonna nail a bunch of leaves. Obviously it's gonna be worse if you truck over a big leaf mat, but if you've got an area that's a little thinner than others, that's where you want to cast. Sometimes I can remember a couple of smallmouth days there around the middle of October where our program kind of dwindled down to, at the end of the day, just fishing wherever we could in the river, because there were, big slackwater spots and whatnot that were just matted up completely with leaves, and you couldn't do anything in that kind of water. So, using those kinds of, things to try to avoid them, and then just going out with a strong mind and a firm attitude, not letting it beat you down too bad. That's about all I can say.
Yeah, it's I think it is just kind of a fact of life.
It really is.
Yeah, and folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email them to us. You can DM us on social media. If we use your question, I will send you some articulate fly swag. We are drawing for something cool for Matt at the end of the season, and I just saw your newsletter. I know you're trying to book up muskie dates. You want to let folks know kind of what you have available and how to find you and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah. Booked a lot of muskie days already. It kind of a little late getting that out there, but, probably 3/4 of the sort of prime moon dates are gone at this point. But there's still some of those left, and then some of the kind of in between time frames too that are, definitely not bad dates to have, are all still available. And like I always say, all my information is on my website. It's MattReillyFlyFishing.com, and reach out however you feel best.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, folks, I hope all of you have a happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, Matt.
Thanks, Marvin.